No, I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you coming on.
No problem.
How's it been for you with everything going on? Like just
It's been uh it's been crazy. Everything's changing, obviously, with my training regimen, what I can and can't do, training at different hours of the day just so I can make sure I'm isolated, stuff like that. It's been tough, but I'm making do.
yeah, yeah. What
How about you?
it's do you know what Australia is pretty good considering it's we out here they curved it pretty early. They set in a lot of the isolation.
Yeah.
They set in a lot of the isolation standards pretty early, and they've shown that the rate was at like 30%, and then now it's at 9%. So they've done that.
Oh,
They've done that pretty quick. I was literally just reading the news there because Donald Trump's just come on and said it's going to be pretty tough in America. It looks like America's going to have it pretty rough the next couple of
yeah.
weeks, which is
Yeah. We're at ground zero, really, with everything. Like it's just not taking off. I know New York is getting hit really bad. DC, California. So
yeah.
yeah.
So have you found it sort of mentally?
What was that?
Have you found it? Have you found it mentally on the sort of dealing with being sort of locked up for?
Well, I like to believe that there's an opportunity in every obstacle. You know, it's a lot of things that are out of my control right now. That if I spent a lot of time just thinking about the things I can't control, then I feel like my time. I feel like what I can't control is what I'm feeding my brain during these times. Maybe
Mm,
trying to, for one, educate myself on the matter from the most credible source. Sometimes you can create a lot of fear based and stress on yourself when you're just reading so many different headlines. If you're on social media too much, just reading a bunch of sources that aren't always credible is one of the main things that I've been working on. Just making sure I'm like, all right, I'm getting information from one source, and that's like the one source that I kind of trust right now.
yeah.
So that's one thing I can't control. The next thing is like, what I'm going to do with myself physically and spiritually during this time. I feel like everything is one. So me being outside, I get a spiritual feeling from being outside. So that being taken away right now, I'm just trying to dive deeper into maybe meditation, dive deeper into like slow burn workouts that really challenge you to focus and lock in to replace the connection that I did get from the environment.
Yeah, the stuff you're talking about there. I believe there is an opportunity going on right now. I think people will come out of this period and be like, I was speaking to a friend of mine who's in a business, and his business was like they're so adamant that everyone had to be in the office all the time doing that, and everyone was cooped up like they couldn't move anywhere. And they've done all of their work at home, so I think that business, something like that business, will change. But then people realizing like I can connect with people in different ways. I can connect with myself in a different way. I can be in a space on my own, like literally being on your own, learning how to deal with yourself in time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've that slow burn as well. Like you're talking about slowing. I've slowed down my exercising for sure. Like just
Yeah,
taking time, like just
working
working.
on the little things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, hips, like really just being intricate in the things that you do. I saw, like, I mean, I first came across you on your Instagram and saw that you were into. It's not often you see too many people in sport, male athletes coming out and showing that they're into meditation, yoga based
yeah,
movement, and slow movement. And
mm,
it attracted me to what you were
right.
doing because that's what I teach and do. And
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I think this meditative state that we're going to find people in is going to unlock a load of new things moving forward.
Yeah,
I saw a lot of the stuff you do with Foot Doctor Mo, with
yeah.
all the real intricate work you do with him. Like
Mhm.
that has have you still are you still working with him whilst you're
Oh
on your
yeah, I
time off?
do. I do. His clientele has definitely grown since
Yeah.
we first started. So like, I'm just another client now. But I've pretty much learned the trade of. Are you familiar with MSC?
I haven't like delved into the actual sort of like what it all is about, but I've seen a lot of the
Yeah,
posts that they put up.
yeah. And for me, it'll be tough for me to explain it. You have to get into their space to kind of understand it, you know?
Right. Okay.
But I take a lot of those practices, and that's really what I'm focusing on now, which is like balance. Balance has been like the biggest thing I think really for everybody, because you know everything starts with the feet,
Mm.
you know, and it works itself up. And I've been thinking like, where are some of my aches, you know, and I've had aches in my right knee from time to time. And I started to really just look at my feet and look at how one foot is contracted and the other one is, you know, kind of not really engaged like it should be. So like a lot of single leg stuff, you know, I started to realize that as people, we're rarely ever just on two legs other than when we're just standing up. So we need to do more stuff just on one leg. You know, we're walking, you're running, especially in my sport. I'm using on one leg, balancing, trying to cut one way, cut another way, you know, and just trying to implement slow burn techniques where I'm just using one leg and just understanding the contraction all the way from the bottom all the way up is what I've been focusing on for like the past 3 weeks now since I've been kind of self quarantining.
Yeah, be interesting to see how that sort of transfers into
Right.
when you get on the field. First, like
Mm-hmm.
congratulations by the way on re-signing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
that's awesome. And I have to admit, I'm a adoptive Minnesota Vikings fan because
Really? How did that happen?
that happened. Oh blimey, 3-4 years ago when Vikings came over to Wembley. They came to England
Oh, okay.
and they were playing Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'd grown up as sort of a part Cowboys fan with some friends, but never really sort of seen anything.
I never know how people receive the NFL who aren't American.
Well, I grew up going to and from the Caribbean, so I've got friends
Okay.
in Barbados, and they were massive Cowboys fans. So every Sunday we would go and we would be watching football. But
Yeah.
they got me into the Cowboys. But then when the Vikings came, it was my dad's colleague who actually got me involved into going to this. He paid for tickets for us to go, and he just plied us with Viking stuff on the day, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. Got into it, and then I just followed them ever since. So, yeah, it was in the NFL in the UK. It's an interesting situation because you go there and it may be a home Browns game, Vikings game,
Right.
Steelers game,
Right.
but there are just it's a 50, 60,000 people that are just multi team. Like there's so many different
Uh-huh.
like supporters. You got Panthers. You got like there's everyone just
Right. 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 I
so
played in London at Wembley in 2015 when I was with the Lions.
right.
I
Okay.
we played the Kansas City Chiefs. They killed us. They whooped us good. But it was a different experience just because looking into the crowd, I'd never been somewhere where I didn't know if I was the away team or the home team. You know, you have no clue. But it goes to show you how fast the sport of football has grown because football really is one of the newer sports. You know, it still
Yeah.
isn't global. You know, it isn't played. You know, soccer is an international sport. It's still the biggest sport in the world. So just to see football make a niche in a soccer market to me is like, well, I call it soccer.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
probably football,
So
but
our
anyway, you know.
football. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like, did you play in these sports growing up or what?
So I ended up being a professional cricketer. So I played
Okay.
professional cricket again in America. Very very unknown sport. Um,
It's, I mean, I know what cricket is, but I've never seen it played, like not live.
yeah, so I played professionally for 6 years,
Okay.
and then I retired in 2016 through injury,
Yeah.
and that was yeah, just my career ended pretty suddenly, but yeah, I mean, sort of, it's not on the scale of what the NFL is with the media attention that it gets and the size of the grounds. It's quite interesting. My brother, going back to sort of what it's like being in the UK compared to America. My brother went to a Saints game like last year, and he'd been to the Wembley game with me, and then and he said it's just a different ball game in America, just because
Completely different. Yeah.
80,000 people on one side, you're the home fans, you're the home side, and the away
Yeah.
side are there as well. But yeah, and it's growing. I think it's how do the players receive it?
I, I feel like we knew that it's a political move.
Yeah,
You know,
okay,
trying to print the league, you know, expand it, which is business. That's business. I understand it. So I mean, I think the players don't really like it too much, just because it's not like I play for Minnesota. It's not like me going to go play Chicago. That's a 45-minute flight for me.
yeah,
as opposed to going from Minnesota to Wembley to potentially lose and then have to fly back 8 hours. That's 16 hours round trip. It really depends on who your coach is, because some teams go out there a couple weeks early. And then you can kind of integrate and assimilate yourself in the culture of London, which that's new. That's a different part of the world that not a lot of people get to experience. So that's cool. So when I was with Detroit, I had a good opportunity. I was there for like a week. So I went down and I saw all the tourist stuff, the Buckingham Palace and all that. But I also kind of went into the neighborhoods and met people. So
Awesome.
that was a cool experience. And I think I'm down for an NFL team going to London or somewhere, but I just don't know how logistically that would work, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Like, how much of London did you? How long were you in London for?
We were like 7 days.
Oh, wow. So real,
Yeah,
like
good time.
acclimatized.
Good time. Yeah,
Yeah,
I couldn't get down to the city every day because we had practice some days and I'll be tired. Didn't want to
yeah,
be on my feet, but I got down there like 2 or 3 times and I pretty much stayed in the tourist area. So, but it was one day. We ventured off, went to the neighborhoods, went to a couple like local little pubs, and it was fun. It was fun.
yeah. So you started at Detroit, and yeah, that's where you were drafted. When did like how did you even get into football?
Man, I'm the youngest of 9 kids.
9.
9. So I have 6 sisters, 2 brothers, and I'm the youngest. And didn't grow up very much. So competing for things was always in my nature. And I'm from a state called Alabama.
Yep,
You ever heard of
yep,
Alabama?
yep.
It's a very country, rural. It's not California. It's not New York. It's not the big Texas. It's not the big state with the big cities. So one of the few values in Alabama that we bring is we're very good at football. You get a lot of strong, fast guys because we're country, so we do more of the labor type of work. So you get a lot of physically fit people. And Alabama football is probably one of the biggest states for football in the country.
Yep.
So just growing up in that atmosphere and competing all the time with my family, I needed an outlet to kind of express, my competitive edge. So football became that when I was like 5 years old. And from the age of 5, I never played with anybody who was my age, like ever.
Right.
My closest brother was 4 years older than me. So when I went outside, I would be playing with 10-year-olds and I was 5. So I started to, get a lot better because I've always playing, above my athletic curve. And then I would say I really got to high school. It started to become a reality that I could play pro ball when I got to high school, and I became the top player in my state my junior year. So that's when things started to really become a reality, and I just narrowed my focus. I'm glad that the parallel of me finding yoga in my sophomore year in college and when I was really transcending towards the running back that I would be in the NFL, I'm glad those 2 times met when they did, because a lot of the training that I used to do before I met yoga didn't have much intention. It was just how many reps did you do? How much time did you spend outside working on your craft? How much weight can you lift? And when I was introduced to yoga, it was more of a purpose. When you get done with a yoga practice, you're like, wow, you can feel your body change and you understand purpose more. And then when you mix those 2 fronts of yoga, the mindset you take there, and then the mindset you take with your craft, it really builds a new appreciation for what you do. And you take your time and you're more grateful. You're not just rushing through reps on the field. You're understanding more how to engage your hamstrings when you're running or when you're decelling, really dropping into your hips and stuff like that. Those 2 practices met at a perfect time for me. And I would say really helped me to transcend to go to the NFL, going into my 6th year in the NFL now.
Yeah. So when the sophomore year is how old are you when you're in that year?
Like 20.
Right. So that's when they met, and that's when you became aware of it.
Yeah,
Which is
that's
still
when. And like it's funny, man. I have a funny story about yoga. I know it may be dramatic, but I feel like yoga really saved my love for football. And
wow.
it sounds crazy because I was doing yoga consistently for like 2 years. We used to have a yoga instructor come to our college team, and we would practice every Sunday after the game. So in college, you play college American football. You play on Saturdays. So after every game, my recovery was yoga.
Right.
So she would come and she would teach us, and I was really consistent. I would even do like my own independent classes when I could throughout the week. And then I hit like my first 2 years in the NFL, I kind of fell off of my practice because I didn't have anybody administering yoga to me anymore. I was in my own space. I didn't see myself as a creative yogi, you know, so I just kind of let it die. And then I got injured, hurt my foot. It was a pretty serious injury in my foot. And for a while, you know, doctors were telling me, like, we don't know if you're going to play again, let alone walk the same again. You know, of course, doctors got to give you the worst, which I think he was over exaggerating for sure, which they typically are when they give you that kind of news. But I had to relearn how to engage my left foot, my arch, my left foot. So yoga became, you know, I got back into yoga and I started to realize like, wow, this is such a benefit to everything that I'm trying to build back, you know, to do. And seeing those progressions that I was making faster with yoga in my rehab, as opposed to rehabbing with my actual trainers, it made me, you know, it reintroduced my love to football, and is why I still have my fire in my belly now.
That's so interesting. What like so much from that as well. First off, as like a 20-year-old, like hear a guy say like from 20 years old, just introduced it straight away. There'll be so many young guys that wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do it
Yeah,
unless
I
they're
mean,
pushed into doing it.
for sure. I don't know how it is in Australia, but in America, it's a very heteronormative society. It's a lot of ego involved,
Yep.
and yoga has, because the way it's been marketed now, you know, everyone does different yoga. I see goat yoga, I see baby yoga. There's so many different yogas, right? And here in America, it's been very sexualized,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And from that, you kind of get a feminine tag that goes along with yoga that is only for women. So if you may go to a group of guys and say, hey, man, let's go to a yoga class, you will definitely get, you know, some jokes saying, no, that's for girls. So that's, you know, that's for that. So it was a lot of that happened. Like how interested I was in yoga. You know, some guys went because they had to, but I would stay after and I would work on balance. And I don't know what clicked in my mind and how I just understood that this was going to make me a better football at such a young age. But I'm glad I did, because, man, I'm light years ahead of where I would be if I was just continue just to lift weights and not offsetting that at all. Even with the way I train now, I don't back squat. You know, I don't do any of that crazy stuff just because I understand the spine, you know, extending your spine and having that ability, man, it keeps you safe.
Yeah.
You know, so like as much as you keep compressing your spine, back squatting all the time, and, you know, it's really just setting you up for a bigger failure in the future, in my opinion. But,
Yes. When you were 20, so when you kind of like thought pro football was going to be an opportunity, was it your own motivation that did it? Was it a coach that sort of said, look, I think you got a shot at this? Or
it was okay. So I have a funny story too. So like I told you, I'm the youngest of 9, and college football actually makes more money than the NFL. I don't know if you knew that.
yeah,
Did
yeah,
you know that?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I've seen a
it's
lot of
like
documentaries on
billion
this.
dollar industry. So from that, they give out grants. You know, it's actually a grant. You know, that's how they give out the scholarships. So you give out about 20 athletic scholarships are given out annually from top Division I programs in America. And being in Alabama and living in the area that I did, it was very country. You know, I didn't have a computer until like going into my senior year in high school in my house. You know, we were very like
Yeah.
away from everything. I didn't know how to send out film. I didn't even know how to get recruited. You know, I didn't even know how that happened. I thought they just somehow just showed up at your school. But I didn't send out my highlight tapes for my senior year until like 3 weeks before signing day. So the only offers that I had, I was rated the number 1 player in the state, but no one had ever seen me play. And that was all off of statistics. You know, they would, you know, take my statistics from every game, and they would be, you know, so high that I was ranked high, but I had no offers. My biggest offer at the time was a small Division III university called Tuskegee, which I was going to have to pay for half of my tuition. You know, it was that type of situation. And I met one trainer, and he taught me how to like compile my footage together. And I sent out my film, and I got one offer from Nebraska, where I ended up going to college. And at the time, I didn't know much about the school. I go up there, it's country just like Alabama, so I felt like home. Fast forward to my sophomore year, I'm running behind this guy named Rex Burkhead, who's actually a running back for the New England Patriots right now. Very good running back. My freshman year, I had a great freshman year. I was a freshman All-American. I made All-American my freshman year behind Rex Burkhead. So actually, the second game of my sophomore year, Rex Burkhead tears up his knee. He's out for the year, and now I'm suddenly the starter. And after that season, I think I started because I was sharing time with another older guy who was also there. I think I only started like 6 games that year, but I went for 1,400 yards. And that's when I started to hear, in my ear, like, bro, you're gonna get drafted. You're probably gonna get drafted pretty high. And then that next year, that junior year was crazy. I went for almost 2,000 yards. And then my senior year, it was amazing. But really, that sophomore year, it was what transpired in such short time to prove myself that it all happened so fast that I still think back on it like, wow, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Like
Wow.
I never, yeah.
It's almost like you don't get time to stop and actually think about what's going on.
No,
You
you
just do
don't
it.
because
You're
like
just doing
I
it.
was a student. I was a student. I had plans to go to law school. That's what I wanted to do. My brother was an attorney, and that's what I wanted. So every day I was just playing games, and I would have like really good statistics. But in my mind, again, I'm coming from Alabama. I don't really understand how everything is viewed. I'm at Nebraska. We were good, but we weren't that good. We weren't Alabama. We weren't Clemson. We weren't those type of schools. So I'm thinking like, okay, this is good for Nebraska, whatever. But it was times I would turn on the TV and I'm on ESPN. Now I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. They're comparing me to Todd Gurley and Melvin Gordon and all these guys who are also in my class. And that's when it kind of became reality. Like, man, if I can work even harder. Like, it's a lot more to my ceiling. And that's when I realized like it was an opportunity for me to go to the NFL. And I never really looked back from there.
Yeah. So the day of the draft, what's that like for you, from your end?
Stressful.
Really?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
stressful. It was stressful because I ended up getting drafted in the second round. It was some calls that came to my phone in the first round from teams saying, if this happened, we're going to take you. And they didn't. So that was stressful. So I don't. You ever watch the NFL draft?
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting thing. Like it's just so
Okay.
chaotic, I reckon. But I
It
just
is.
interested to know from the other side. Like you're sitting there, you're watching it. What's your
I'm
phone
watching it.
doing?
Yep.
Like, yeah,
So I knew it was like maybe a 15% chance of me going in the first round, which wasn't very high. But if you have a chance, that's more than anything,
yeah,
than nothing, right? It was like midway in the first round, the New England Patriots called me, and they were talking about if this guy gets drafted here, we're going to take you. They were picking 32nd in the draft, so the last pick in the first round.
yeah,
So for the first round, that takes up a whole day because the first round is the longest, right? And then the second round is the second day. They do the first 2 rounds in 2 days, and then they do the rest of them in all in one day. Um, so I'm talking to the Patriots, and the guy they said gets taken in the spot they knew was going to get taken, he goes. So I'm looking at my dad like, what's going to happen? We get to the 32nd pick, they pick somebody else, and the round is just over. So at that point, I'm just like, man, that's a lot to deal with when you're a young man, and someone tells you like, we're about to pick you, and this has been your dream since you were young or whatever. We get to the second day. And the Arizona Cardinals, they called me early in the second round, told me they were going to draft me. And I pretty much stayed on the phone with them for about 45 minutes, waiting for their pick to come up. It was 2 picks before Arizona. I'm on the phone with Arizona, right? Talking to him, getting ready. He's telling me about all the nice places to visit in Phoenix. Great. You know what I mean? It's going to be a great time. Literally, the pick before Arizona is Detroit. I had never talked to Detroit in the pre-draft process or anything. They draft me, and I'm on the phone with 2 different teams. It was crazy. One Detroit called me. He's like, "We're taking you to the next pick," and I had to tell Arizona on the phone, Detroit just drafted me.
wow.
So yeah, it was a lot of drama. It was a lot of drama that day, but I was grateful. I was grateful for wherever I went. So
I think they always look pretty. They always look pretty dramatic wherever, like
yeah, yeah,
whichever
yeah,
pick, and it's always going to be. It's obviously going to be
yeah.
pretty dramatic for the
I wonder
person
how
that's
they're gonna
getting.
do it this year. I don't know with everything going on.
Yeah, yeah. Are you getting any sort of like signs of what might happen or?
I think they may do like a live stream, which is the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah,
Well, like no one's gonna be in the audience, maybe.
yeah.
But then again, that's risky.
Yeah.
It's like I guess that's I don't know.
Yeah, there's sport is just taking a massive turn, a massive turn. Any sport, like
Everything.
the Premier League in the UK, the football there is just going to be. They haven't even finished the season. They don't even know what's going on. Like
Right.
it's crazy.
hmm
Um,
The NBA is gone. The Olympics are postponed.
yeah, man. Like that's
Yeah,
it's hard.
I got a couple of friends who've been like, I feel bad for track because track is every 4 years you get your shot. So I got friends who've been training and training to get themselves into shape for one moment.
Yeah,
Track is just one moment.
yeah.
I always say like those type of sports, I respect those athletes because that kind of dedication is crazy. Like basketball, you get 82 chances.
Hmm.
That's a lot. Football, you get 16. And I argue in football that we practice so much for so few games, you know. And just think about track. If you're a 100-meter sprinter, you get one race
Yeah,
and you're training for 4 years, and they're like, you know what, postponed it,
yeah,
and it's like, wow,
yeah.
for what?
I saw a stat on Usain Bolt, and it was the underlying sort of tone of it was about investment and investment as an athlete, and it was like Usain Bolt ran for a combined, if you look at his world records, just on 100 meters, like combined of 40 seconds, but it took him 20 years to do it. And you think that now that is investment, that is
Right,
real
right,
investment.
right.
I did a podcast with an Australian marathon runner over here, and she had just given birth actually, but she was trying to aim for Tokyo, and and yeah, she was literally about to go for another marathon, and yeah, it's all been ripped away, and you think, wow,
Yeah,
like, and that training, just the time that it is on there, it's yeah, the mental pressure as well of being able to. I agree. Like playing a team sport myself, you do get 16 chances. You get okay, but at the time, I reckon when you're in that sport, you don't think of it like that. You're like, this is
right,
I've got this opportunity, and if I mess it up, sometimes like that, well,
right.
wow, really, do I have another opportunity? It's you
hmm
never know. But yeah, I respect those track athletes. Like it's insane what they do. With your yoga that you've brought in, like you so keen on it and so into it, which is so good to see. Like, and I I respect anyone that does it, especially like having, because I can understand that journey you've gone through where people would have been making fun of it, people would have
Absolutely,
been
man.
picking holes in it, and it
You can
does
only
look a certain
imagine
way.
as well, like being a professional athlete. Like I think I present myself in a little different format than a lot of different athletes. I'm very open, and I've been trying to embrace that more because I used to be a little bit introverted, where I was from a smaller town, so I was kind of ashamed of some of the things that I value in life. But it took me a couple years to understand that everyone is different. You have to embrace who you are, all that kind of stuff. But being an athlete and being, marketed, on large scale sometimes, man, I've heard it all. I've
Mm,
heard it all about, me liking yoga and, what that means about me and, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if I let that deter me away from what I'm doing, then that means that I wasn't really doing it for the right reasons anyways,
mm,
so at the end of the day, this is a practice that fuels me, personally, and I hope to inspire people, but that's pretty much where my job of doing that ends with
mm,
me putting it out there.
mm.
I don't have to argue why yoga is better than this or that. It's just good for me. It's
Yeah.
good for me. So,
Have you found I found when I first got into it that whole first off, your understanding of your body. Like I found that my injuries went down just because
yep,
I had a huge understanding of how my body felt. I didn't
right,
realize then I think the biggest connection I had was the mind body connection that I had with, if even from a very primal stance, which was if I just release some tension in my body, my mind releases that tension as well, which allows me to then access a better understanding of how I'm thinking, what I'm doing, and yeah, have you? How much of your practice is really about your mind as well?
yes, all of it, really, and
Yeah.
and that's why the other day I posted on my story. I like to listen to songs on repeat. And I like to listen to songs with like crescendos that build because they help me get into the mindset of everything in life is a journey. everything in life is a journey. So like I like to tell stories about the workout that I have. So I have a journal, and every night I like to like scribble down in my journal a little bit like what was the journey of the workout today, right? Where like where was the challenging parts? What did you learn about yourself today? You know, what did you prove to yourself? What do you need to get better at? And I use music a lot of times as an analogy for things because I love music so much. But understanding that the mental is greater than anything that I have out here, my arms, my muscles, my legs, just telling yourself sometimes like what I start to do is this. If I like to get up to planks where I can plank for up to like 5 to 6 minutes, just on my forearms, just plank for 5 to 6 minutes. And I started to talk to myself a little bit. And it may sound a little whatever, you know, but what I was telling myself really fixated my contractions, my endurance, all of that. If I would have just sat there and tried to use nothing but my physical, I would have died out minutes before. But it's something that like I can tell my mind in moments where like I'm holding it and I know I want to just come out of it. I'm just like, no, why not? Just hold it longer. And just something as slight as that gives you 30 more seconds before you're shaking again.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, wow, it really shows you how much stronger and how we create like confusion around us with just our mind. You know, like around you, you can create a situation around you that seems tougher than what it is. And when I started to realize that, like in my physical practice, where I'm like doing a workout where I'm holding a plank, I'm like, wow, do I do this same mechanism when I'm out in my workplace and I'm dealing with a social issue? Do I create more confusion that's actually existent? You know, and it helps you step away and it helps you remove yourself from things that aren't, you know, some petty things in life that really don't need your energy a lot of times. And shoot, I don't know how I got on that tangent, but yeah, man.
Yeah, no, like
Yoga
it's
definitely,
that's so true. Like that journaling of your workouts and talking about it as a journey. One, if you go through a yoga practice, like a yoga practice is a journey from where you begin. You're in this like fixated body, I guess, and then by the end of it,
right,
you're pretty creative. You're pretty open, and you're
right,
you're, you're feeling just in general, you're feeling better. But
right,
to go back to when you were talking about when you were younger and it was all about like reps, and I don't think this is not just an American thing. This is whether you're in Australia, the UK, Russia, anywhere.
yeah,
The male cocoon and the male sort of image is that yes, going into the gym, pumping iron, doing reps is going to equal this result. And
right,
but what have you learned? What have you learned from each time
mm-hmm,
that you're in the gym?
exactly,
Have you learned what you're about? Have you learned how your body moves? That's the
right,
biggest eye opener I see, especially when guys start doing yoga and they start stretching, they start just meditating.
right,
The end product is that realization of, oh my god, I didn't realize either how
right,
tight my body is, I didn't realize how my hips felt, I didn't realize that how my mind was. And I think the journey in the mind takes a lot longer than the physical body is just
right,
a lot quicker. It's a little bit more instant gratification almost. But like the journey in the mind takes a little bit longer to have that
right,
ability to open up. I think the vulnerability series that you were doing and like your do rag talks and what
yeah,
you do on Instagram TV, like that's a really powerful message to send. I can see, and I know I can tell from the vibe that you give off from them, like they're passionate and they're
yeah,
so open, and that's what we need more of. We need more
man,
men
absolutely.
being
I,
able
th-
to just
I
show
think
that.
vulnerability. I think vulnerability is our greatest strength as individuals. I do. It's been something that's been built in a social construct to be bad. If you're vulnerable, you're easily taken advantage of. But I believe that genius is nothing but persistence in disguise. So you know, the only difference between someone who is successful and someone who isn't is they just didn't quit. You know, I actually posted something, a quote from Nipsey Hussle on my page today, and something that he really branded in his career was the marathon. Right? He said his career was a marathon where it was times where he never thought he would be where he is, but he just never quit. And I think that's what vulnerability is. I think we give up on our vulnerability at a very young age, maybe because we get embarrassed, you know, about being open, or maybe we just don't. We're just inadequate in some situations, and you know, we're we're put in a society a lot of times where if you do something one time and you're not quote unquote good at it, you're put on this pedestal and like, hey man, you look stupid, you should quit this, that, and the third, you're not good at it. And I don't care if you're LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, they built their crafts. Of course, some people are born with, genetic genes that make them, very athletic. But make no mistake about it, no one's just running out there just being pros on day one. And I think that's where the mind element really comes into play. Is just understanding that persistency is key.
Mm.
Persistency is key, and it takes true vulnerability to be persistent, especially on a scale like being a professional footballer,
Mm.
where if you have a good year, everyone's going to be loving you. You have a bad year, everyone's going to hate you,
Mm.
talk about how bad you are. And you can either let, that kind of stuff get in your mind and it can ruin your vulnerability and make you not work as hard anymore, make excuses for why you don't want to work as hard. But deep down, it's because of what people are thinking about you. And, your vulnerability has been hurt a little bit.
Mm.
You can either let that become the best of you. You can understand that, hey man, it's a marathon. Yeah, I fell down today, but I could I could build strength tomorrow. Like I think it's a lot of things that go into vulnerability. That we don't talk about enough. We don't introduce to the youth enough, especially just because there are so many times where you're in a situation where um, for example, gender codes, right? Gender codes. I met this one kid in California. He was actually featured on the Step Into Vulnerability series where he wants to be a dancer. But, big dancing for men is seen as a feminine thing, and he was receiving that kind of information from his father at the time where he was telling him, no, you shouldn't do that. Like that's what girls do. You need to be a man. And you can see when that is constantly fed to a child, it can distort truths, and
Mm.
it can distort a child's vulnerability. So next time he's meeting something in life, it may not be dancing. He's already going to be kind of like second guessing and reluctant because he's like, well, what does this mean? In the eye of the social construct, what does this mean? How do I fit in? And that once you get everyone just fitting in, no one's standing out. There's nobody, nobody great, And I think a lot of greatness is, we put a lid on a lot of greatness just because we attack people's vulnerability at a very young age.
Yeah, it stops you from stepping into those opportunities, doesn't it? Yeah, Christ, like how many people would be lost to potentially being great at something if they were just
Man,
willing to be vulnerable. It's the societal constructs that are put around what we should and shouldn't do. I think I chat like in the UK. Again, I don't know what it's like in sort of America, but growing up, it's very stoic. It's very like this you show this hardened external character, and that was who I was. And it wasn't until I actually went and did my yoga teacher training, and I grew up. My personal yoga journey was that I came into it through the physical. I was getting injured
yeah,
all the time, and I wanted to fix that. But
right.
I didn't have that person connecting with me, like communicating in it in the way that resonated with me. I was like, oh my god, this is very out there for me. Too much. This is too much for me. And but I copped it a little bit, and I was like, right, I'm gonna let it in. I'm gonna give it a go. So I did it in private, did it in my own way, until I saw the results physically that was doing it. But then I
Right.
felt that not only my physical performances were better, my mental state was just far better, and and then when I retired, and I was like, right, maybe I should try and translate this yoga over to my community, which is athletes, so that 20-year-old me can have someone to resonate with. So I went out to Hawaii. I went out to the Big Island and did this huge immersive training, and it was extremely out there. But when I was there, I said the biggest learner, apart from learning the asana, apart from learning sort of the mindfulness side of it, was I felt I was in this, I was a chameleon in the rooms that I was going into, and I was turning myself into what people or what I
Right.
thought I should look like in that room, rather than when I was there, I just stripped that all away and I was actually authentically me. And then that was the moment, that was literally the moment for me where it all clicked. And
And I'm glad you said that, man. Being authentically yourself, because when I first got into yoga practice, I used to go like when I first got into like independent yoga practice, right? So like second, third year in the NFL, I would go to different groups. And some groups were welcoming and some groups weren't so much, where you had to do it a certain way. And I feel like yoga is a little less constructed than that.
Mm.
I feel like movement, as long as you're, not overextending and not hurting yourself, in some situations, movement is an emotion, it's what you feel, you know? And I feel like yoga plays a part in that where when you get in a space, you shouldn't really be focusing on anyone else but yourself a lot of times.
Mm.
And you should kind of follow that movement. So in the morning I do just morning movement. And it's not always yoga. And people are always asking me like, I mean, what's your routine? I don't have one.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't. I don't. And I think sometimes we need to embrace the feeling of living more to really understand, like, you don't always have to have a structure. Like, I don't even do reps anymore. I don't do reps in my workout. I go to failure every single time until my body for that time. If I got 15 that time, I got 15. If I got 30 that time, I got 30. And I think that is a simple way to kind of train your mind to just go and not be so confined to rules all the time. Like, I feel like we marginalize ourselves a lot of times because we're like, all right, well, what are you doing right here? What are you doing right here? I'm just following my body. What's good for me isn't always what's good for you.
yeah.
I feel like, follow where your body feels like it needs attention.
Yeah, I think when people go into some yoga classes, and I had a friend of mine who started yoga, he goes, Lou, this is the worst thing could possibly be doing. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, that yoga practice was so hard, I couldn't do anything. I was like, well, what class did you go to? So, it's my first class, but it was called Bikram. I'm like, whoa, like that's your first class? Like, that's all right, fair enough. So that was his introduction to that was an intense one, and something that he couldn't he thought that's what yoga was, saw it, but that waking up, I'm the same now. Like, I've start to just wake up, arrive, and go, what do I feel like doing? What do I feel like doing? But that's a creative side that now comes out. Is that's now challenging your mind? Like, how can I, rather than follow this plan, how can I actually ask my body, what does it need? What does it want? What is it? Or is there a story being told in my mind that says, oh, well, I want to slow down, I want to do less reps, I want to do more holds, I want to do more relaxing, I want to do some sort of like yin style holding where I'm really relaxing the muscles. But there might be a story being said in your mind that no, you need to be doing fast paced, heavy rep, like push yourself. It's a balance, like it's a real balance. That's where that mind body connection comes into it.
Yes.
Yes. What do you always meditate every day?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I meditate. I just started a different breathing technique that I do at night right before bed, and in the morning I try to meditate. And at midday, I try doing this thing I like to call just manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle, you're in a meditative state, but you're trying to put yourself in a place that you may particularly be. For me, a lot of times it's football. I try to feel what it feels like to run that route perfectly.
That's cool.
And sometimes I've gotten, very rarely do I get like great sessions with it, but when you get that one good session where you're like just thinking and you're feeling it, by just visualizing it so much, you'll start sweating sometimes. I've laid down and I've put myself through an entire game one time, and I got up and I was sweating and I was just laying down the whole time. And like I said, it's very rare that you can get yourself to that state sometimes, but I like to do that because I feel like that trains your mind. So when that circumstance does come, it's not the first time you've seen it. You've rehearsed it so many times that it's kind of like muscle memory. You just bang, bang, bang. You do it. You're like, man, what did my body just do? I didn't even know. It's like because you've rehearsed it.
That's really cool. Like, I'm a big believer in visualization, and anyone that asks if there's transferables for meditation and sport, it is 100% visualization for me. Putting yourself in the arena where you're going to be. What's it like though when you're actually? Because I've seen a game of NFL. What's it like? Because there's a lot going on. There's so many players. There's adverts. There's cheerleaders. There's everything going on. That it is a show, like a real show. So how do you bring your mind into a state where you can focus on what you're trying to do rather than get caught up in everything. I've seen pictures of you sort of almost in a meditative state at the goalposts.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
what is there a routine that you do or something that you
Yeah. So
do that?
I do that. That's actually another area where I take some time to manifest as well. I do that right before the game. But for me, man, I wish I had some perfect answer. It takes reps.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just
yeah,
reps. Like I'm going into my 6th year. If I would be lying if I said like I get into this mindset, I play this. Like it was tough, man. Especially like early in my career, I'm looking around. I mean, I'm on the field. I'm like, man, that's Peyton Manning. You know what I mean? And then I see someone else. I'm like, that's Tom Brady. I remember my first time playing against Tom Brady. I probably spent the first quarter not even really listening to my coach. Like we would come to the sideline as an offense, and as you know, I play offense. So when I'm off the field, Tom Brady's on the field. So once my coach was done giving me my pointers, I would get up and I would just go watch him. And I remember I was like, yo, I gotta snap out of this. I gotta win the game. You know,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
gotta play. And but it took a couple of years for me just to really get into my groove and to really like catch my own, you know, I guess frequency on a day-to-day basis when it came to the game day. And maybe like 2 years ago, I started to implement just a slight meditation, about 10 minutes right before the game, right before I go from field warm-ups to actually going to put on my equipment. I always get into that mode, and I know like I'm a kickoff returner, so I know potentially I'll touch the ball first every game. So I take myself through a kickoff, and then from kickoff I go through offense. I know what plays that were put in for me that week. I close my eyes because I can see it now. Where it's like I know third down in this change, they're going to be looking to come to Ameer and underneath against a linebacker. So how am I going to make that move on that guy? What does it feel like? You know what I mean? Like when I know if they call and I'm on the right side, I'm going to be cutting off my right leg to cut back in. So I'm thinking, how does that feel? How does it turn? How do I turn on my glute medius to get my inner thigh going? Thinking about all these different things. So when I get there, it's like bang, 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 as opposed to holy crap, what I need to do because I didn't rehearse it in my mind. And I've been in situations where I wasn't mentally prepared, where I get out there and I was at practice and I ran the reps, but I wasn't really seeing myself run the reps. I was just running them. So I got in the game. I had no bird's eye view of myself. That's what I like to call it. Like you give yourself a bird's eye view of like playing a video game. What would you look like and what does it feel like going through that rep? And I've had times where I was prepared, where you hit it, boom, 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 quick as ever. You beat them so bad on the route, they don't catch up until 30 yards down the field,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that repetition, but also just continuously knowing that if it didn't work, keep going, keep trying it, keep your effort, and that knowing that all you're doing is you're building your ability to try and do it more often than not. That's awesome. Like that's really cool that you're doing that. Was it like after, because you're taking some heavy hits in the game?
Yes.
What do you do after the game to physically and mentally sort of decompress and recover?
Mm-hmm. So I actually have a trainer that typically lives with me full time during the season, for Dr. Mo.
Yeah. Okay.
And he does a lot of the recovery elements. He handles a lot of that stuff like massages, whatever. I'm not a big icer. I don't really. I mean, it's a lot of studies out there that say ice doesn't help. Some people like it. Some people say it's a placebo, whatever. But I'm not a big icer. I look at ice like this. I mean, when you throw your chicken in the freezer and you take it out, you can't eat it right there. It's too hard. And I look at my muscles like that. I'm like, I keep my muscles warm at all times to keep them flexible. So I like to sauna. Hydration, that's the main thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Hydration is the main thing. But yeah, man, it's kind of no way around it in football a little bit. It's like, you're going to be sore. But I think movement is health. So like right after a game, you need to do something like, even like right after the game, for a few games, me and my trainer, we would like do a slight just like balance session to like re-engage all those muscles, get that blood in there, and then you rest. Don't just go rest right away. You know what I mean? Try to flush that stuff out a little bit. But, every year is different, man. I'm only getting older, so every year is different.
Yeah, you've put in all the work to begin with. I think that's probably the main thing. Like you said you're light years ahead of everyone else, and I actually think that like what you're doing is what you're putting out, the content you're putting out, the stuff you're doing, you're trailblazing, and you are inadvertently, whether you're meaning to or not, you're inspiring a lot of athletes, no doubt about it, to be doing this sort of stuff, because shoot, we need it now more than ever for our mental state. And I think after this whole cloud passes the world, there'll be people that will be asking a lot of questions of their physical and their mental health, and they'll need people like you to go to. That's for sure, mate. This has been fascinating. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, and I
Enjoyed it.
I think this is the stuff you could have spoken to you for hours, and this is so good. I really appreciate you coming on, and I really appreciate you taking the time for it, man.
No, thank you, man. I appreciate it.